Rose.
I'm Emily Harmon.
Today's episode we are doing Garnacha. So, I think some of you have probably heard of this grape. It's in a lot of stuff.
It is.
Gets around.
It does get around.
Not always the star of the show, but
No.
always a good supporting cast, I think.
Yeah.
But I think by itself can also be delicious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here we've got, so Grenache, I think most people are familiar with the word Grenache, the grape variety Grenache. But for those that aren't, it's a grape variety that produces medium to full-bodied wines, so generally high alcohol wines or higher alcohol wines, and an abundance of red fruit, particularly when it's very ripe. It can lend itself to be a little bit of this kind of like raspberry jam kind of character. But when it's made, I think, exceptionally well, and in the best examples, like producers like Chateau Reyes from Châteauneuf du Pape that make a Châteauneuf du Pape 100% from the Grenache grape. It has these amazing floral characteristics, the aromatics, this almost like chocolate orange note to it as well. That's like quite delicious.
Makes a good rosé too, right?
Yes.
Places like Tavel and where else? There's another place like also only makes rosé or.
Yeah, I mean the Tavel rosés are amazing because they're so textured and kind of
the same with these like sort of strawberry floral thing. I think when I was reading, there's a lot of floral notes also in the rosés.
Yeah, I mean like Eric Pfifferling. Are amazing. Yes.
I actually think we could probably also do 2 episodes on Grenache because I think it's like
we can do like 8 episodes on every topic probably.
Because I feel like this one gets around so much. Like I feel like already it's history because it's from one particular. They think it's from one particular part of Spain in Aragon, and that it would have moved towards France. Like that any movement, no matter where it was from, it would have been moved around because of the King of Aragon.
Really?
Yes. So that that they think it's from Spain, but regardless of where it was from, it definitely moved around because of him.
I mean, and France is definitely, France now, there's more plantings of Grenache in France than there are in any other country, followed by Spain, Italy, US, and Australia are kind of the key areas for Grenache.
I guess there's also, let me look at my notes. Did we also have, New World also, right? So Australia, you said, California, and then also South America. So I think like Chile, Argentina, and Mexico all produce Grenache, which makes sense climate-wise.
Yeah, of course, because it's a great climate. It needs warm climate to ripen. It wouldn't do so well. And also, Grenache also sometimes doesn't always ripen so easily on the vine, or evenly. I should say evenly, not easily. I actually did a harvest at a winery called Commando G in 2018, and they work. Other than one white wine that they produce, which really represents a very small amount of the production, I don't think even 5%, they only work with Grenache.
Oh, amazing.
So I had a month of picking Grenache.
I wonder if that's Spain. Do you think also it's just so planted because it's planted in the Rhone in France, but also in the sort of
Languedoc-Roussillon.
It's used a lot in,
and I think also in Provence, Bandol.
Exactly, Bandol and So actually, there's just a lot of regions that it grows in. It's not one of those So when we say it gets around, it's really
it does get around.
Yes. I'm excited.
Yes, and I think so. We've got 2 wines from Spain and 1 from France. We're keeping it local.
Yeah,
I also never really, even though Italy, there's quite a bit of Grenache in Italy. Really? I also it's not not
first on your list when you're thinking of grapes to buy.
Yes.
And we're obviously, because we live in Europe, we're drinking more European stuff. It's harder, and it's not that easy to get great Australian wines for us here, I think.
Not at all.
No. So as much as we would love to be trying something, maybe, stick to this area.
Often, I think also you touched on it a bit before, was the case that it's not always a single varietal, it's often blended. We see it, I can just see on your notes that it says GSM or GMS.
Yeah, that's
you see in Australia it's a very typical blend, which is based on the Rhone blend. So it's Grenache usually blended with Syrah, often also with Mourvedre as well.
And then I guess the same idea of this Rhone blend is also, you see it in the States, but then they just call it Rhone blend. And apparently they used to grow a lot more Grenache for high production, large volume production in California, but that's sort of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So here we are with the first one. What are we?
Yeah,
What's
and I
our
think
first?
just touching on that last bit with the Rome, because we will get there anyway, but often the Grenache Syrah blend, or sometimes you also sometimes see it blended with a little bit of like Carignan or Sanso.
Yes. Okay.
That grape variety provides a lot of acidity, the Syrah for the spice and the colour, and the Grenache for the sort of fruitiness as well. So that's why.
That's what I was going to ask actually. Yeah.
I think it's also, you know, because it can be quite jammy, to then like kind of.
It needs something to round it out a bit.
Sometimes, yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, Syrah can be also, if it's just by itself,
Yeah.
too piney or too whatever, that it's nice to give it a little fruit, soften it out a bit.
So, the wine that we're trying now is called Albara. It's 2018 from Envinate. Envinate is a collaborative project between, I believe, 4 winemakers. They all met when they were studying winemaking.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's spread over different regions. So,
oh, cool.
yeah, so this is from central Spain. They also have a project in Ribeira Sacra,
Okay.
where they work with Mencía, and then also in the Canary Islands in Tenerife as well. You would know them when we did our first
Yes, I
pop-up, we
remember.
had the white and the red on the list. And yeah, so different winemakers are kind of located in different parts of the world. So there's
But what a fun concept, actually.
yeah, and they all kind of have an ethos of how they make the wine and the style of the wine. So this is 70% Garnacha Tintorera, so it's the type of Grenache which has the red flesh as well.
Okay. Oh wow, so then it really gives a bigger, deeper,
More colour.
More colour.
Yeah, so yeah, 70% Grenache and also with a little local grape. And then it's whole bunch, and it's vinified and aged in concrete and barrel, but old barrel, 50/50.
It has a really like leathery kind of quality.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And there's a little medicinal thing at the very end, and then also a bit of like cassis.
Yeah, I mean it's got a lovely perfume actually.
Yeah,
It's got this kind of like creamy berry fruit, like
Right.
a berry yogurt
Yes,
almost.
but then it still has it would be a great unisex perfume. It's got a
Yes.
little bit of this
Yeah.
like leather
Biker.
and,
A biker eating a fruit salad, a berry fruit salad.
I was thinking of those like Muller corners. So.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
The cherry one or something. So quite interestingly, because I actually bought 2 Spanish Grenaches because I love Spanish wine and I love Grenache in Spain, particularly these 2. So they're from different regions, but they're from different soils, but they're both made with whole bunch. And I think whole bunch is so important for a grape variety like Grenache because of the skins being quite thin, because of the tendency to have this sort of very ripe fruit profile sometimes, that when producers are picking a little bit earlier, which is very much the trend now in Spain, that there's
just getting more acidity, or
getting more acidity, and then with the whole bunch as well, you get this spiciness in the wines and this freshness from the skins and also from the seeds.
I was going to say, I mean, are they using stems too, or is it just like?
I believe that I think it's with the stems.
Yeah, so then you get
whole
that
bunch,
bitterness
so
of the sort of like stemmy.
Yeah, and the stems give a lot of flavour as well.
Which
Obviously,
actually,
when you add the
because
stems, it also
Yes.
you lose a little bit of colour. So if we weren't doing whole bunch, you would expect a darker colour than this wine.
it's also interesting because I did have 100% Grenache this weekend, and actually, like by itself, this one was quite smooth and fruity, and whatever they've done has obviously given it some character.
And just like shifted the structure slightly.
Right.
And I think this is really a trend that you're seeing in Spanish wine, particularly over the last 10 years, is that there's been a huge movement towards picking earlier, using whole bunch, doing lighter maceration, so not necessarily pumping down, leaving the wine, so then you get this kind of intercellular fermentation, you get more lifted aromatics because of that, and a different profile of red that actually is very drinkable. I think Spanish wine is, again, it's changed its image drastically over the last decade and is now a super exciting place for red wine.
Cool.
You know, there was a time where it was very, I don't want to say stagnant, but like it just wasn't dynamic, and like it was almost like a place where you had really oaky, jammy red wines.
I mean, that's kind of when I think about like typical Spanish wines that I might have had in the last, whatever, things that friends drink from the supermarket, you know, the sort of Spanish wines have this sort of idea about them. But this is very interesting because it's not what I expected.
Yeah, I love the spiciness in this wine actually. And it's high altitude, it's around 800 meters. So because of that, you get a difference in day and night temperatures, which also helps with the freshness, also helps with the complexity, because even if you're picking early, you still have quite a good length of time with the fruit on the vine as well.
I also think this is really versatile for food, because I think you could actually eat tons of stuff with this.
And this is not.
No one can see it.
This is not. This is not. Yeah. Oh god. This is not an expensive wine either.
Oh,
I mean,
amazing.
we have it on the list here at Aura, and I think it's either 36 or 38 euros.
Wow, that's really affordable.
For a small producer, it's organically farmed.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally think this is like, you can drink it by itself with some snacks, but then it could totally stand up to something grilled. There's enough of that bite at the end that you could charcoal something and it would still be fine.
Yes.
Alongside
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I like that. Like something grilled would be great.
Yeah, because I think that little bitter end kind of like has enough to, I think it would fruiten up a little bit too with something like this.
Yeah, or even something like a little cassoulet or something as well, like a stew.
Like a sausagey, I mean, obviously because we're thinking Spain, I was thinking also like chorizo.
Yeah, nice. Yes, smoky, meaty.
I think there's enough like of the sort of strong characters that it could hold up to all of that kind of stuff. Really nice. I was excited that you were bringing to Spanish, because actually it's not something I drink that often. Is
Spanish wine in general?
Yeah, I don't think we. Maybe also because Wiki doesn't cook so much Spanish, and we're always the sort of in the grow together.
Yeah.
We need to get out of that.
I mean, Spain for me has been an area of focus, because for 5 years I took care of the wine list for Moro and the two Moritos in London. So they're really great Spanish restaurants by Sam Clark.
So of course then your focus is going to be
on the wine list was only Spain, with a little bit of Portugal and a little bit of like Moroccan or Lebanese wine.
Oh, interesting.
Or occasionally Greek, because that's the influence of the food.
Right.
We squeezed a few Georgians on as well, but we had no French or Italian wine. So for 5 years I was, every month tasting, maybe 60 Spanish wines a month. So
yeah, I really think it's just not like a region that I've spent too much time. Maybe I should change that. Because I think we do get a lot of Spanish wines in this part of the world. Like they are accessible.
Yes.
Like they move around enough.
Yeah. I mean, so the next wine that we're having is a wine that I actually import.
Look at the colour of this already.
I know.
So
looks like
clear.
Pinot.
Yeah.
And actually, in some ways, when Grenache is made really well, I do see some commonality between it and Pinot Noir as well, just because especially when it's made like this, it looks like a Pinot, so it's like this lovely kind of strawberry juice colour.
Yes.
So I've just poured us 2017 Cardamat Valentin Garnacha, and this is from my favourite region in Spain, which is called Sierra de Gredos. So we're in central Spain, an hour west of Madrid, in these hills or these mountains called the Gredos Mountains or Sierra de Gredos, and it's one of the most spectacular regions to visit. Not just visually, but also for the wine, because it's so exciting. Visually, it looks a little bit like Jurassic Park or something from Star Wars. So you have these huge granitic boulders.
Wow, amazing.
Green covered hillsides.
You can totally see this.
Lots of bird life as well. So when we were picking, I'd be like, the raptors are coming.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
You just hear it all the time. And actually it's quite rural, so it's visually beautiful. The vineyards are high, over 1,000 metres in some cases. So you have this really interesting climate there. It's one of the later regions in terms of ripening. So I was there from middle of September to middle of October, and we're still picking in the middle of October, because you have these very cool evenings and very hot days.
Interesting.
And Grenache can tolerate the heat, so yeah. And it's an area where you have a lot of old vineyards. In some cases, a lot of abandoned vineyards, but there are a number of growers that are working on bringing back these abandoned vineyards and producing wines from them. So it's all bush vines.
Okay.
So that obviously helps with the sun.
With the sun, protecting from the elements and whatnot.
Yeah, so old bush vines and granitic soil, so volcanic soil, so you get some even more freshness in the wines.
I know how much you love the volcanic soil.
I do. Volcanic aromatic.
Yeah.
It's maybe the difference in our personalities.
I was going to say, actually, it's like, that
this
makes
is
perfect sense.
Going down more levels than one.
Is this one more, is there more Grenache in this one?
This is 100%.
100%, okay.
100%.
And I think we can see this maybe already by the colour.
Yeah, and this is...
but you said this one was the Tinto, so that it had the red flesh, which is why we get more of this.
And this is a blend of a few different vineyards, small vineyards, put together. And red granitic sand for these vineyards. Whole bunch, again, 100% whole bunch. And this is a mixture of concrete and barrel.
It does also have a very umami, meaty.
Yeah, for me it's got this, I know, the first thing I get is strawberry laces. You know, those sweets?
See, I get that a little, totally, the yum.
And it has got that orange, that kind of like blood orange kind of note to it as well that's there.
Oh, this is my jam.
I know. Elegant, beautiful Pinot style.
Yeah,
Grenache. It's 14.5% alcohol.
Wowzer.
This would fuck me up.
Because it's so light tasting, it's so delicate that I think like I wouldn't notice.
And I think this is a really good example of how choosing a wine or analysing a wine and focusing on balance rather than just the alcohol percentage on the bottle.
Yeah, right, because actually, you're right, because I think like if you were to just look at the bottle and you'd be like, ooh, Spanish, 14% Grenache, you might be like, maybe it's too big for what I'm thinking.
But how racist
But it's so nice, yeah. This is definitely really delicious. And totally right about this Pinot style, that strawberry kind of.
And so difference in soils here, semi-similar winemaking to some degree. This is made by two guys, Curro and Jesus. They have another project, actually two projects in Galicia, in Ribeira Sacra. Their most well-known project is called Fideos de Couto, which means brats of count. And they're very good friends with Danny Landy and Fernando Garcia, the guys that I work for.
Okay, nice.
Which is how I discovered this wine. And I think 16 or 17 was the first vintage of this project. So they're only going to get better.
And where can you said you import this one, right?
Yes, and in the UK, for the people that are there, Carte Blanche Wines import.
Yeah, nice. Yes, this is definitely something I would look for. I would drink this again.
Yes. And these aren't expensive wines. I mean, on the wine list, I think it's around 40. So shop price around 20.
I mean, so far it's already
trade price even less. I think it's something like 13 euros or something.
I mean, that's already. Because of course when we get into like the Rhone, I think it gets a little more expensive sometimes.
I mean, this is at the same price as a Côte de Rhone, and I think compared to a lot of them, maybe better quality.
Yes. Yeah, because I think always the trouble I have, in the past, because I actually, the reason I picked a Chateau Neuf du Pape was A, because I knew you were bringing two Spanish, and I was like, okay, well, we do the classic, because it's kind of, I think, like where everyone first experiences Grenache would be in a Rhone blend, and I know for myself, there was always this idea that like Chateau Neuf du Pape was like, Chateau Neuf du Pape.
I know.
When you're young, it's sort of...
It's that special wine. I mean, also because everybody talks about the one with the keys on it. The wonky bottle.
Yeah, it was that one. It was like, you could get into Sainsbury's and Tesco's back in the day. But it was always the like, it was like, looks like a bottle that's like 1,000 years old or something. They marketed well. But it was always that like, oh yeah. So I think when I started drinking red wines, that's kind of where I went first, was the Rhone, and then really fell in love with Shirazes, and then started drinking more, because I was living in North America, so then more Californian or Australian or more New World stuff. So it was interesting to come back as an adult and then revisit these, knowing maybe a little bit more. Because I remember you helping me when I was studying for the quartermasters, to try and drink single varietals to understand how they work in a blend. And I remember you brought me a Shiraz, a single varietal from the Rhone that's made by a natural producer sold under Vin de France. Michel something.
I think it was the Mathieu Barret, no? Was it
like a red bottle? Just a plain, very simple, I think Michel something. But it was so intensely Shiraz that it was like, or Syrah, that it was, I think it really made me realize that when I drink a Chateau Neuf du Pape, or these blends, to understand what part plays what, which I think is like really nice to then try a Grenache by itself, because I think it's often,
and I think particularly in the case of this wine, because we're so used to drinking these like New World like
and they're so
that are just like fruit bombs, fruit jam bombs, and they're not wines that I like to drink because they're too much.
Yeah, agreed.
But when you try it like this, it's just like, wow, this is really following this Reyes style of like very pure,
I love this,
terroir driven, but like elegant and expressive and I don't want to say feminine because I'm trying to trying to get out of these
refined,
shit
elegant,
rolls, but this prettiness in the wine, I guess.
I mean, I think there can be like, I totally know what you mean about this. Like, it's so hard to like describe feminine and masculine energy without using those terms.
Yes.
Instead of using the line between the two and
Yes.
thinking it more of a bowl of soup.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it is. It's
tough.
really, yeah, I'm trying to get out of that habit because of so many people say, oh, this is very masculine
Totally.
wine. It's like, well, how, why, what even is that?
Right, because I think we touched on this like the last season that we recorded, because of this idea of like, yeah, elegant. I mean, a man can be elegant and a woman can be
I
elegant.
mean, I know
and
some very elegant men.
totally same. So I
Yeah.
think like it's important that we also change this language.
Would you like to have a go at Corrivining?
Oh my god. Okay.
Go on.
So I just
So this is the new Corrivin model, which I don't actually like because it's really difficult to open
you have
that.
to like it's like a hair clip,
Yeah, and that goes on.
and then
You just press down on the top.
oh
And kind of, yeah, there we go, great. And then you can try with my glass first. So you sort of tilt the bottle here, and then you have to press this
at
gas.
the same time.
Yeah, at the same time.
This one.
Yeah, that's it, and then let go.
Oh.
So that every time you do that, that injects gas into the bottle to then displace the wine, to push
Gotcha.
the wine out. So you'll get, yeah, like the more you do it, like that's too much gas, so
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
I love it because one of my girlfriends sometimes when we meet for drinks,
There you go.
she will Corrivan a bottle of Burgundy, but then by the end of the night she's like Corrivan's like 2 whole bottles.
Really?
Should have just opened them. When you're like, I've not committed to this hangout yet.
But she would Corrivin 2 whole bottles. Why would
Well, like,
she
she's-
pull the cork?
I know,
She'd
because you
start being.
That's what I mean
yes.
about like not committing, where you're like, no, we're just gonna have a glass, and then you're like, well, okay, well we finished one, definitely not gonna have a whole second.
Then you have a whole second,
Yeah.
and that's when you just pull the cork out. Those bloody capsules are expensive as
I
well.
don't know.
They work out about 50 cents a squirt.
Okay, I'm gonna be.
Not a squirt, but like per glass. This would be fun. No, I mean
I'm like,
no,
oh.
but for us it's like it's way
Yeah.
more worthwhile because like actually
Yeah, because
tilt the
actually.
bottle a bit more.
Yeah.
Higher, yeah.
I actually want
It
to
just
buy
takes a
these
while
too.
to get used to it. There you go.
Oh,
Look at
yeah,
that.
look at that. Sexy.
New skills.
Okay, alright, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm like spit in your face with that thing.
Yeah, it is a bit, isn't it? Sexy.
It's like
Kinky.
it's like I'm gonna get you to dismount.
So to dismount, no, I was just gonna hold it for you.
So I just like
no.
Oh god.
That's okay. Just so you pull it up. So we do it in reverse. You pull up from the handle. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then it comes off. No.
It feels so fragile.
Yeah, but it's okay. The
Yeah.
worst that can happen is the needle breaks and I have a spare.
Gotcha.
So what
I don't know much
so the
about
wine
this.
that Gwen bought is 2017 Chateauneuf du Pape from La Bastide Saint-Dominique.
Yes. So, I mean, I bought this because I went to Passion to buy some other stuff and figured I would buy a
Becoming one of
classic.
their regular customers, aren't
I know, because it's like, I did the same when I was going to Bolosol all the time, but now it's like, oh, we've just been happening to do stuff that kind of works out to go
Yeah.
there, and buying some stuff for myself. So actually, again, I took a recommendation on this one, mostly because I wanted to buy a Chateauneuf that had a high percentage of Grenache, and this one is 80%.
Mm.
Then it has 10% Syrah, 7% Mourvèdre, and 3% Saint-Saul.
Mm. Yum.
So I haven't smelled this yet.
I mean, visibly very different to the wine before,
Yes.
right? Like it's almost black.
Yeah, it's like much darker even than the first one we had.
Mm. And I think it's so interesting to see such a different style of winemaking here as well. Do you really, what info have you got for us on this wine?
So we have, other than that it's small hillsides, soil, sand and clay. Soil with round pebbles, which I guess is quite normal in that in the Rhone. This pebbly.
They're called galets.
Yeah, this sort of.
Yeah, really famous. They actually look like, for people who live in the UK, they look like the stones on Brighton Beach.
Oh yeah, okay.
A bit like that kind of size and that kind of shape.
Okay, so it's really
Not the black ones, but they're kind of lighter in colour. But
the
yeah,
small,
yeah.
like.
They
Yeah.
look like a pebbly beach.
So then the vines are like 25 to 80 years old. They do destemming, 18 days of vatting in stainless steel tanks, cap punching, pumping over.
So like it's like the opposite winemaking. So they're
Right.
using steel. They're not using any whole bunch, which is why we're getting the
Right, so
darker
they're
colour,
just-
and they're working the grapes more
Right.
to extract more, which
colour.
is why we've got more tannin as well.
Which feels like it's something that happens more on the Rhone.
Yes.
That's sort of what you expect.
Yes.
This like big powerhouse red. I mean, 'cause it has that like big velvety.
Yeah, big time, and that very, very intense berry fruit as
Yeah,
well. Raspberries, blackberries.
I would say out of the three, this one for me has been the biggest berry flavor.
Yeah, and like full, like so this is 15% as well.
Yeah, this is a.
But you can feel that it's just way more intense, more structured. But you need, you can't, a little oyster or a little green salad's just going to get completely destroyed by this.
I have to say, the taste. I mean, the end is what I expected, but the actual initial flavor is a lot softer and smoother than I maybe would have.
I think this one it's so different because you do feel a bit of the heat, but with the right food and the right time of year as well, it would be amazing.
I mean, I
like
love
rich chocolate, like a stew.
I was gonna say I love these kind of stuff with these like big, rich French or sort of like northern Spanish stews.
But even just eating them, imagine on a Sunday afternoon, stuffing yourself with like roast beef, and then just laying on the couch.
Also with steak and stuff too. This is also a great barbecue.
Big time.
Barbecue kind of stuff. I wonder why it is that Châteauneuf du Pape ended up with such a like what happened in the 70s and 60s? Like I feel like was there a moment in history where like that was like the pinnacle? Was it because I feel like growing up there was always this like view of Châteauneuf being a sort of
I think the UK is a really big market for these wines,
maybe
right?
That's why, yeah.
And I know what you mean because I also had the same experience. I think as well because the bottles, so traditionally they have this, what would you call that? Because it's the opposite of engraved.
It's not, embossed.
Embossed, yeah. So this embossed glass with the keys here.
It's so iconic.
It's iconic that people know that, and it makes the bottle look a little bit more special. So for the everyday person, they would see this, and I think it's a little bit like there are certain French appellations.
Sancerre being one of them.
Sancerre, like even like Fleury from Beaujolais, that like they just show up on like pub lists, on restaurant lists.
So it's like
the
pop
everyday
culture.
person know that they're kind of like this is a special wine because it's like one of the more expensive ones. It's like Châteauneuf.
But it's accessible. Maybe there's something about it being like accessible, like high end. So it's like higher end than your average everyday wine that you might drink just for like chats with your girlfriends. But then it's like it's the nice dinner with your boss wine.
I mean, it's never been as expensive. Like these
that's what I mean. It's accessible.
Yeah, totally.
But it's like what you pick for a nice dinner that's a little fancier, a little more expensive than your regular wine, but that feels special. So maybe that's the sort of pop culture how it fits in.
I think also you're right. But I do think the additional thing was that this is a style of wine that many people wanted to drink at that point. Because also when we're still seeing kind of the results of this, but I think there's a kind of understanding for a lot of people that, or a thought or a theory that the more alcohol, the more intensity, the more body, the more flavour, the more you get.
80s, right?
Represents that. The more you have of that shows that there's more value in the bottle.
I think that's actually very interesting because I do think that like when I think of like 80s big red wines, there is this sort of like Chianti, like all the big like bold and that kind of energy of like over the topness and indulgence and richness.
I mean, in the UK, look how many people love drinking Malbec.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Malbec from South America, and you're like, because they want something at a certain price. It's just like I need the power. This is what I need. This is what I can taste. I need to taste all of it because if it's too
feels
thin,
powerful. It feels like you get bang for your buck. It's high alcohol. It's big taste.
Yes.
That's actually very interesting.
Big taste equals big money and equals okay. I've got my value for money here.
So interesting, actually, because then you think like how the sort of pop culture of just wealth distribution and perception of wealth changes how we perceive products that we taste. That like during, maybe now things are changing. We've talked in other episodes about the sort of people wanting quirky things now. So that's sort of maybe how our time will be recognized as like, remember back in the early 21st century, 2020s, that people were like, everyone actively looking for different. So it's like, maybe when we're looking for different, it's sometimes interesting to go back to what we haven't examined in a while.
I agree, and I mean that's definitely like a journey that I notice I've been on with my wine taste, because I would say I've always been drawn to more eclectic, esoteric off the beaten path. But I have noticed that the last few years my tastes have gone full back loop to
into
the
classics.
Yeah, because I'm not like, oh, I haven't had that for a while, I want to go back.
And there's
a
different appreciation, I think, when you go back now with the journey you've been on, to be like, there's something about this that's it's classic, but just like a little black dress or whatever, the classic is sometimes not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It has a moment.
Yes.
A place, a time and place.
And funny enough, Châteauneuf-du-Pape was the first wine region I ever visited.
Really?
Yes, I went I went for my ex-boyfriend's father's birthday, and so we ended up going there. We stayed down in Avignon, and we just did 1 day trip to Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and I just remember it being unbearably hot, like being like going from an English summer to like 40 degrees.
When you think like an English summer, like growing up, if it was like 23, you're like, oh my god, it's so fucking hot today.
Old people start dying.
Yeah, you're like, it's 23. Whereas anywhere else in the world, you're like, oh, it's a bit chilly in your cardigan.
I know. And so then we went there, and I remember there was like a big wine fair that happens every year in Châteauneuf called the Fête de l'Oraison, and it's like a little festival, and there's lots of, all the producers bring their bottles and set up a table, and it's done around the time of when the grapes colour, so it's like about a month or a few weeks before when they pick the grapes.
I mean, that's a smart time to have a party. When you're like, you're not pressured yet about having to pick anything. You're like, this is the waiting moment where we're just sort of celebrating and
let's sell as much wine as we can, because we need to make space in the cellar.
I mean, all of it is very clever. I love it.
Yeah. So we were there, wading through 15% wine off 15%
fuck,
wine. So it was like 37 degrees, and I was just like, oh my god.
It's also funny because it's like the last thing I want to drink when it's 7 degrees would be this.
This is what I never understand. Also, like in Tuscany, regions like that, obviously red grapes are like abundant and there's more of them grown. But I'm like, why are people not making bloody rosé in these places? Because it's so hot.
Drink it cold.
Yes.
I guess because I actually love this kind of stuff at night. That like when the night cools from a hot day, there's something about these kind of wines that feel really nice, like the feeling of hot pavement after the sun's gone away.
Yes,
that kind of the lingering heat. I think there's something about those wines that gives you that feeling of lingering heat.
Yeah.
But certainly not when I'm smashing at 37 degrees in the sun.
No, it was like just sort of going around in delirium. You're like, I can't.
I'm so parched.
Also, from the tannins as well. So you're like, my lips are red.
Yeah.
I literally have like my mouth is like a desert right now. And I think I'm going to pass out. Am I drunk? I don't know, because it's not
You're
fun.
just like in between. You're like, I'm floating between two worlds right now.
I thought being drunk was fun.
Not today.
Yeah, not today.
I'm actually like curious about the lip thing, because I always wonder if there's a particular like scientific reason why some people get like black lip and black tongue and other people don't.
I think it's how hydrated your lips are.
Because I generally don't, but I know Lukey sometimes the next day will wake up and he's like still black.
So you don't give them a wipe before
he goes to bed? If we brush, I mean, I'm talking about when we like tied one on.
Okay, what? Sorry, what does that
You're
mean?
just like wasted. Like,
okay, just
when you're like super
that sounded
drunk
a
and you
bit
pass up. No, it's not that kind of tying.
When you tied one on, I was just like, okay.
No, I mean like,
or
like you just know like when you're out with people like towards the end of the night, like there's always.
I'm prone to a blackhead sometimes. I've noticed that tastings, teeth and my lips. I mean, the teeth is also because the enamel's just wearing away from wine tasting ideas anyway. I mean, so also often in there like this.
Yeah, but also with enamel, like each of us has different. Like I've never, some people have this blue-white enamel, and others have. It's not the one I have. I have the very European, not so white. And then I drank shitloads of coffee for most of my life, and yeah.
Yeah, and it also depends of like if you haven't had them professionally cleaned, if you've got some tartar on there, then it like anything will stick to that.
I wonder about people's pHs also, if this is something that like, I'm curious. So if anyone knows why, I want to know. I'm curious about that.
I notice if I'm dehydrated and my lips are drier or stressed, then I notice that like immediately they're red. So I mean, I'm often, if I'm at a wine tasting or an event, I mean, I'm regularly going to the bathroom, just getting a piece of tissue, spitting on it, and just like rubbing the hell out of my lips so I don't look like a crazy person.
There was a thing when I was bartending, Pepto-Bismol, which I guess is much more popular in North America than it is.
It's like Gaviscon, isn't it?
Yeah, it like just helps with acid reflux. So a lot of bartenders love a bit of Pepto because we have hard nights. But there was always this there's something really funny. If you drink Pepto-Bismol and then drink alcohol, it turns your tongue black. there's like a chemical reaction that happens. So you could always tell, like we had, you know, this was a big nightclub, so you could see like the regulars that were coming like every night and like really going hard. You see them the next day and you're like, what happened to their mouth? Like the whole inside is black. You're like, someone had a little Pepto dinner before coming over.
A Pepto Vino night.
Yeah, like had a little Pepto and then came back to the bar, drink a couple of drinks, and then your whole mouth was black. So note to self, don't do that.
I was once a tongue model and I had my tongue painted black.
You're a tongue
On
model.
my lips, yeah. Because I've got a very long tongue.
So do I. I can actually stick my tongue in my nose.
I can't stick mine in my nose. Oh my god.
I mean, I have a low-hanging nose. It makes it easy. That's what happens with, it's the pros to a witchy snoot.
Yeah. I'll show you the picture at the end.
It just makes me think of like the time I
It's from a magazine on a gothic
really?
gothic
That's
thing.
so
So my
funny.
whole face was, this half of my face was painted white because you only see this
just
part of
that
it, and then you see my tongue kind of
hilarious.
black, and I have black lips painted on as well.
So funny.
Yeah, it looks kind of creepy.
I love those kind of pictures. We found a really weird one of me while I was unpacking, of me holding like a whole pig's head. Very strange. That was for an expo years ago.
So maybe we should post that on our stories.
I don't know. It's like at the point now where I have like too many vegan friends and clients.
I was
so
about
it's
to
like,
say I don't
disturbing.
know what the
Yeah, I mean, I haven't put it up. It's like been sitting in a folder for the last 15 years. But a really like amazing friend and fantastic photographer, Amitio, took it, and someone bought the print that he was like massive. Like I would love to see where it's sitting because it's like the original is like a massive print in a huge black lacquer frame.
Mm-hmm.
It's a statement. So I'd love to see yours. Maybe we do a side by side. Pig's heads and black tongues.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I don't know, is there anything else we want to talk about Grenache especially? I mean, I think it's like, we've only scratched the surface here and just these sort of like, that it can be in blends, that it's quite delicious by itself, it makes a fabulous rosé, it travels around.
Yeah, and I think, be open to the fact that it may present itself in different ways. And if you're not necessarily into the very intense style, then I would say, you know, look for regions like Gredos, and look for whole bunch Grenache. And equally, on the flip side, if you've tried the whole bunch, you don't like it, and you want something more concentrated, appellations like Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Côte du Rhône, some of the other Southern Rhône appellations would definitely be the way to go. And the Roussillon, which we don't have one today, but there's a lot of very good value, just like single varietal Grenache being grown in the Roussillon.
I hope we do. I think we'll do probably like a
Roussillon.
Yeah, or like that sort of the lower part regions, because I think there's a lot of underrepresented wines in that region too that are some really special gems.
Yes.
So we're, I guess by the time this episode airs, it's warm weather and we've been out on the balcony.
Yeah, so just do what I did and go into the heat and drink loads of Grenache.
Get fucked up and then take a nap and do it all again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So with that said, you can find us on Twitter at juice_podcast.
At juice.podcast on Instagram.
Then you can find us on our personal pages. I'm obviously Gwen Douglas with the U.
And I'm Vina Lupa.
And that's it. Until next time.